Okay, good morning, committee. Good morning, members of the public. I would like to call this meeting to order. It is currently 9:07 a.m. on a beautiful day here in the township of Muskoka Lakes. I'd like to verbally confirm that everyone is present and accounted for from committee, as well that our CAO, clerk, and members of the senior management team and staff are here and present today. I would also like to make a note that there was no public comments received at TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca. I do note that we did as a committee receive an email, but because it didn't go to TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca, it does not form part of the public record. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. We did receive or do have a supplementary agenda today. Pursuant to section 7.21 of Council Procedure Bylaw, the following item was added. Jason Sift or designate of our Muskoka Stakeholders Association will attend item 7A, a report from the Fire Prevention Officer Burning Bylaw 2023-034. At this point, I'd like to ask committee if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Okay, seeing none, thank you. Just a reminder that our motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite this meeting. I would like to also continue to note that we are working in a hybrid situation. There are members of committee in room today and members attending via Zoom. We will continue as a chair. I will continue to do my best to make sure that everybody is being acknowledged as we work through and finessing of this kind of approach. At this point, I will turn the floor over to some delegations that we have today. Our first delegation is Mr. Tim Hutchison from our Municipal Insurance Services regarding our liability policy. And just a note for delegations that are requested or come forward as information for committee, and this would be the situation, as will be our second one. There is a further time allotment beyond the 5 minutes. And the committee, our delegates do work with staff to try and be as effective as possible in their delegations to us. So it will go beyond 5 minutes. It can go up to 30 minutes. And I would just ask our delegates to note that we have read the presentation. So if there's an opportunity to be as succinct as possible as we go through it, we look forward to hearing from you today. So with that, I'd like to ask, is there a staff member introducing Mr. Hutchison, or is he just coming in? Okay, Mr. Donaldson, turn the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mazan. Good morning, members of committee. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Tim Hutchison. Tim is the president of MIS Municipal Insurance Services. Last spring, committee will be aware that the township issued an RFP for insurance services, and Tim's firm was the successful proponent and has been invited this morning to present an overview of our general insurance program. Just a brief introduction, there's some in the slides, but Municipal Insurance Services is based in North Bay and is part of McDougall Insurance Brokers. MIS professionally serves municipalities and First Nations communities throughout Ontario. Tim specializes in municipal and commercial insurance. He's a second-generation insurance broker with a diverse background in corporate finance and manages the insurance programs for more than 40 municipalities throughout Northern Ontario. And with that introduction, I'll hand it back to you, Chair Mazan.
Thank you, Director Donaldson. Mr. Hutchison, welcome.
Good morning.
I see you on Zoom, and I will turn the floor over to you. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me today. I'll start off by apologizing. My voice is a little raspy. I think I picked up a cold from one of my young children. So I'll just hope that you bear with me, and apologies in advance. Again, my name is Tim Hutchison. I'm the president of MIS Municipal Insurance Services. And we're very, very happy, very excited to be partnering with the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Very happy to provide your insurance coverages and excited to be able to speak to you folks today. We'll go through the presentation as succinct as possible, as you mentioned. On the next slide, we have a brief agenda where we'll basically start off with an introduction, with give a background of our firm, talk about some of our municipal experiences, highlight some of the services that we provide for the township. All of these are included in the annual premium, so these are not items that are at an additional cost. And then we'll finish up with an overview of the insurance program. I'm happy to take any questions that you folks may have as we proceed. The next slide will highlight some background about our firm. So we're based out of North Bay, Ontario, and have been operating here for more than 40 years. We're part of a specialty insurance group that focuses on large commercial insurance. Specifically for our operation, MIS is the largest municipal insurance broker in Northern Ontario. And we're the only brokerage in Northern Ontario that focuses specifically on municipal insurance. We have an exclusive partnership with Marsh Canada to provide their municipal insurance program. So we are their selected broker for Northern Ontario. Our program has been designed to meet all of the risk requirements that a municipality could face. Rather than some other programs, or as some folks would genuinely approach insurance, they may start with a commercial insurance package and then try to amend it to meet the needs of a municipality. That's not what we did. We started with a blank slate, or what's called manuscript wording, for our municipal insurance policy, and designed it to meet all of the possible needs that a municipality could have. And that's the basis for our program. So we've got extremely broad coverages that where other competitors may have to purchase separate insurance policies to ensure some of the operations of the municipality. Ours automatically has that built in. That's one of the benefits that we have of our manuscript wording. MIS is part of a larger insurance group, McDougall Insurance Brokers. McDougall is based out of Belleville, and it's one of the largest insurance brokerage groups in Canada. We've got more than 50 locations around the province, and we currently employ about 450 individuals. The insurance brokerages are measured by their total annual premium written. So right now, our offices do more than $500 million in annual premium. The benefit of that size gives us additional clout with our insurers. So they will work with us in situations that they might not be willing to spend the time to work with a smaller broker. So we leverage that size and capability to make sure that we can find a solution whenever needed for our clients. And we leverage our relationship with Marsh to get access to the absolute best insurance markets in the world. In terms of our relationship with Marsh, and our program, it is written with the largest municipal insurers out there. Our liability insurance coverage is written with a company called QBE. They're operate out of London in the UK, and they are the largest municipal insurer in the world. Our property and auto coverage is led by Aviva Insurance, and they're the second largest insurer in Canada and one of the largest insurers in the world as well. Again, that size and stability helps us offer a very comprehensive program at what we've seen is a very competitive price. If we move on to the next slide, we can briefly review our experience. So MIS, operating out of North Bay, we service more than 100 municipal and First Nations communities throughout Ontario. This is our business. This is my focus and my team's focus. This is what we do. We focus on public sector insurance. Currently, out of our office, we service villages, towns, cities, and regional municipalities, everything from the small to the very big. And we focus on long-term relationships. Many of our clients have been with us for more than 15 years. We're very happy, we're very proud of those long-standing relationships. And we can say we've gone through a number of RFPs, and scenarios where our clients wanted to shop to make sure that they're getting the best price, or they had to because of their mandate. And we're very happy to say that for the majority of the time, we're able to keep those clients. It's not often that we lose out on an RFP process, and if ever, it may only be by price, because we pride ourselves on providing a very high level of service to our clients. Highlighting our relationship with Marsh again, while we service more than 100 municipal and First Nations clients out of our office, Marsh services more than 300 from their head office in Toronto. So again, very large insurer with lots of experience in this area. Currently for the province of Ontario, more than a third of the municipalities are insured with Marsh. On the next slide, just briefly highlight the team. I'm the primary contact for the township, so anytime that there's risk management questions or coverage questions, I'm the primary point of contact. We do have two additional folks working directly on the account to provide support, Cheryl and Sam. Cheryl will provide primary contact and support whenever certificates are needed, certificates of insurance, which happens frequently enough, and any updates to property schedules, vehicle schedules, driver schedules, some of the background processing. Sam will also provide support as needed. We have redundancies on the team to make sure that if ever somebody's out of the office or unavailable, we have backups on backups to make sure that you're never left without a response in a very short amount of time. We pride ourselves on our extremely high levels of service. We turn certificates of insurance around. Our mandate is within a few hours. It's definitely within an hour, usually within a matter of minutes. We catch the email right away. It's turned around quickly and accurately, of course. Transitioning to highlight some of our services, the next slide includes our risk management services. This is just a collection of some of the services that we have available to the municipality. These are included as part of our risk management services, part of the annual premium. There's no additional charge for these services. Our focus is we want to act like an extension of your in-house risk management team. Anytime there's a question about risk and its relation to the municipality, or insurance and its relation to the municipality, we want and ask that you folks contact us and review each scenario in detail. That's what we're here for. That's where we can really add a lot of value. We offer risk inspection services. So if there's issues or concerns with potential hazards on site around the municipality, let us know. Just a few hours down the road, we can schedule a time to go and complete an inspection and provide our recommendations. We review contracts as needed. So anytime the municipality is entering into a contract, we're happy to review it and provide our feedback and guidance from a risk management and insurance perspective. We don't try to be lawyers. We understand that's not our forte. So we'll provide guidance and advice from an insurance perspective and make recommendations as per our purview. And in addition to the day-to-day risk management services, the inspections, the contract reviews, we also have a number of informative educational seminars that we can provide. On a regular basis with our partner Marsh and with our insurance partners, QBE, Aviva, our cyber insurers, we will have seminars and webinars that we will put on a regular basis that, of course, our clients have access to. But beyond those standard pre-scheduled events, if there is a hot button issue, a topic that you folks at the municipality would like some additional information on, education, we're happy to either grab a presentation that we already have pre-prepared, as we've got a number of them, or if it's something specific, we can develop a seminar, webinar, a training workshop for you folks, and either put it on virtually or in person, whatever you prefer, to address any of those concerns that may arise from your operations. The next slide just enhances or highlights really what we're talking about from a risk management perspective. We like to highlight our risk management approach for any third parties that are using municipal facilities. We like to highlight this item simply because this tends to be a hot button issue and where a lot of claims or a lot of questions can circle. So anytime that a third party is using a municipal facility, there's a risk to the municipality. So we do have some recommendations that we put forward to the team at the township and some items to consider. So anytime that a third party uses the municipal facility, we're here to provide advice and guidance. Our standard advice and guidance is that we should secure confirmation of insurance coverage with a limit of not less than $5 million. Part of how the renter can provide confirmation of coverage is through a certificate of insurance. We'll review that, make sure the township is named as additional insured, and make sure that there's a 30 days notice of cancellation. The idea behind securing confirmation of coverage and at a limit of specifically of $5 million is we have seen that the vast majority of claims, including serious claims, can be settled under that $5 million limit. So by confirming that a third party has that $5 million of coverage, we can ensure that those claims are likely not going to hit our municipal insurance policy and will likely be responded to by the third party's policy. So that helps insulate our policy from claims and helps us keep our premiums as low as possible. It also ensures that the third party has appropriate coverage should something go wrong at their event. We understand it can be difficult to secure coverage for these smaller one-off events. So we do have a number of solutions available. Our office can secure those one-off insurance policies for events. If it's a stag and doe at a municipal facility, if it's a baseball tournament, any of those events that a third party is hosting, we can assist and provide coverage. It's extremely inexpensive to secure that coverage. We can do it because it's part of an extension of our program, and we're happy to provide that service to ensure that you folks are actually are adequately protected as the township, and also our third-party facility users are adequately protected. There is broader coverage available where you can purchase sort of a blanket policy on an annual basis, and that's something that we're happy to provide if that were the direction that you folks would like to go in. Transitioning to the next slide to highlight some of our claims management services. Our offerings are there in detail, but effectively what we do anytime there is a claim that befalls the municipality, we are there as your ally in your corner. We will work with the insurers to ensure that the claim is dealt with as quickly as possible. We will work with the township to make sure any proof of loss, any documentation is done correctly and submitted to the insurer as quickly as possible, and manage the process from start to finish to make sure that you folks are adequately taken care of. We know and we trust our program. We have wonderful wording, wonderful coverages that provide a solution anytime there is a claim, a very robust solution where we have coverages where vehicles can be written off after they're 20 years old and we can provide full replacement costs, very robust solutions. And we make sure that the insurers abide by our contracts and get the claim wrapped up as quickly as possible. As an extension of our claims management service, we often think about a claim the moment that there's a loss, there's an accident, having to deal with the replacement of a vehicle or repairing a building. But in reality, our services pick up much sooner than that. Anytime there's an incident that could lead to an insurance claim, or anytime there's an incident where somebody's injured, we have a process set up with the folks at the township where we're notified immediately of that incident so that we can document it on our system and we can document it with the insurers to ensure that we abide by the requirements of the insurance policy to give proper notification to the insurers immediately so that there's never any question about if coverage will apply. So we've got that process in place now with the township. Mark's been absolutely amazing, keeping me abreast of any updates with any potential incidents or claims. And we, of course, will pass that information on to the insurer and document everything to make sure that our process and the insurer's process is followed to a T. Transitioning to the next slide, Slowly getting into our insurance coverages. So I want to highlight the current insurance market because, again, another hot button topic, insurance premiums, rising insurance premiums, and what effect that has on the municipality. Traditionally, the insurance market is what we call a soft market, where insurers are usually competing to take on new risks, and they're trying to compete by offering more and more coverages at the most competitive price. That tends to happen for a period of about 10 to 15 years. And then after that soft market, we typically enter a hard market, which is a period of time where insurers want to adjust premiums and coverages as losses over the past 10 to 15 years start to mount. We entered the hard insurance market in the beginning of 2020. And typically a hard insurance market only lasts about a year. This hard insurance market has stretched on for some time and was really exacerbated by COVID and the fact that a number of insurers actually left the market. So insurers left the market. There's still the same number of risks to insure, but fewer insurers willing to take on that risk. So that dramatically affected premiums. One of the things that we're very happy about, and I talked about briefly at the beginning, was our relationship with Marsh and our specialized municipal insurance program with some of the largest insurers in the world. The size and stability of our insurance partners matters. It's their size and stability has allowed us to maintain relatively low premium increases on an annual basis when compared to our competitors. Again, I'm saying relatively. Prior to the onset of the hard market, we were very happy and our clients were very happy as we delivered 3% and 4% increases annually. That's not the case in the current market. Single-digit increases are a huge win. Low double-digit increases are still a win in this market. What I can say, though, is the size and stability of our partners has allowed us to have lower increases relative to the other municipal insurers out there. And that size and stability is really what allowed us to be so competitive when competing to provide the appropriate response for your municipal insurance RFP. What we see looking forward is we're still seeing some effects of the hard market on liability insurance rates. They tend to be up in the low double digits, and we're still seeing the effects on property insurance rates. I should clarify that not necessarily the property insurance rate, not the cost to insure the property, but the actual value of replacement costs on properties is up dramatically as a result of COVID and the cost of materials and the expenses associated with rebuilding. So while our rate to insure property side has not increased dramatically recently, what we're seeing is noticeable increases on the cost to rebuild locations. So that's something that we are closely monitoring and focused on, and are working with our municipal clients to ensure that each of their properties are adequately insured. As part of the changes that came about with the hard market, insurers started to take a closer look at the underlying risks that they were insuring. So from the property side, they want now full COPE details on every single property that they insure. So that's construction details, occupancy details, protection details, and exposure details. There's been a renewed focus on the quality of buildings that insurers are insuring to make sure that they're charging the appropriate premiums. Because again, with the onset of the hard market driven by losses, the insurers are trying to combat losses as best as they can. So what does that mean? Insurers have a focus on kitchen facilities to make sure that they've got the appropriate protections in place. Insurers have a focus on buildings to make sure that there's the appropriate sprinklers and fire prevention systems in place throughout the entire building, and to make sure that the rebuild costs are appropriately met. On the liability side, along the same lines, we are seeing premiums increase, and they're trying to combat losses as they see fit. One of the areas of concern, of course, is environmental losses. So we wanted to make sure that all of the municipal facilities and fuel tanks, for example, are up to par. and the requirements that the insurers are looking for on our program match those requirements of any other property or liability insurance program around the country. If you have an oil tank heating your home personally, you know that after 15, 20 years max, if it's located inside, you have to replace that oil tank. Similar standards have to be met by our municipal clients in relation to their diesel or petrol fuel tanks as well. Again, we're confident that we have the size with ourselves and our insurance partners to weather the storm, and we continue to deliver insurance renewals that are lower than our competitors. We're happy to say that, and we've got a very positive outlook looking forward. To transition to the next slide, to really highlight from a very high level our insurance coverages, give a brief outline. Again, our program's designed to meet the requirements of our municipal clients. We've got a very, very broad liability insurance program. If we'll click over to the next slide, it will highlight the liability coverage. Our liability program includes the liability for the municipal operations. So that insures municipal employees, council members, municipal volunteers, so long as they're operating within the scope of their duties. It covers the municipality for any liability or property damage caused to a third party. It also includes E&O coverage that may arise from, say, a building inspection claim, and other broad ancillary coverages that are included, from forest firefighting expense to conflict of interest legal expense reimbursement. Our total liability limit on our liability insurance policy is $50 million. It's made up of 3 separate underlying insurance policies, $5 million, $20 million, and then a $25 million excess. And the reason why it's structured that way is we've worked with our insurance partners and found that we get the appropriate coverage at the most effective cost. And that's why we structured our program that way. Moving to the next slide, our property insurance, we've got in excess of $60 million worth of property insured on our program, along with a number of ancillary coverages. There's coverages for newly acquired buildings up to $1 million. They're automatically insured, along with new construction builds up to $1 million. We also have an automobile replacement cost deficiency included in our program, which I alluded to it earlier. If one of the municipal vehicles is in an accident and is totally written off, our program will provide the full replacement cost for that vehicle up to 20 years old and 25 years for firefighting vehicles. It's a wonderful, wonderful enhancement on our program. We have had clients who have written off older vehicles, and I think they fell off their chair when they found out what they were getting, writing off an old fire truck. But we understand the value and usefulness of some of those vehicles is in what they can do, not necessarily their value, their depreciated value. So that's why we want to make sure that we provide that additional support should you experience a loss. As an extension of our property policy, we also have our crime coverage, which provides coverage for loss of monetary items. If we click over to the next slide, there's $1 million worth of employee dishonesty coverage and $200,000 for loss inside or outside of the premises. It's very important that we highlight this does not include a cyber financial loss. That's something that a crime insurance policy was never designed to cover, and why we recommend to all of our clients to have a separate cyber insurance policy to make sure that they're adequately covered for those cyber losses, because that's where we're going to have a financial loss in this day and age. Crime policy is there, very inexpensive. We keep it there for the actual monetary dollars that we'll keep on hand for forgery of checks if that should befall us. The real risk is in a cyber loss, but luckily we do have a cyber policy with quite high limits that we can rely on if the need be. If we click over to the next slide, it will highlight our auto insurance coverage. So this covers all township vehicles on the road for liability and property damage if we opt for property damage on those vehicles. Our auto policy has a $5 million limit, and then our excess liability, our umbrella policies, the $20 and $25 million excess, will drop down and provide coverage if there is a significant loss. So effectively, for all of our municipal vehicles on the road, they're protected by a $50 million liability limit as well. If we click over to the next slide, we have our council accident coverage. This is provided really as a thank you to the councillors for your work. There's a $250,000 principal sum if there is loss of life, but there are some ancillary benefits that can be used if a council member is injured. There's accidental medical benefits with a limit of $15,000 and an additional accidental dental benefit limit of $5,000. So if an accident befalls a council member, do keep in mind there is some additional coverage through our policy. Feel free to reach out to us. We can review and see where some coverages may apply. On to the very next slide, we have our municipal volunteer accident coverage. Any individual who's volunteering for the municipality is covered by the municipality if they were to cause bodily injury or property damage to a third party. What this coverage is designed to do is provide a benefit to the volunteer if they are injured while volunteering for a municipal event. So if an individual is injured volunteering at a municipal event, they can let us know and we can provide a sum up to $50,000 depending on their injury to help offset their costs and expenses as a result of the injury. The idea behind this policy is, again, a thank you to our volunteers. If they happen to get injured, we do have coverage they can rely on. And also it helps isolate claims from our municipal insurance policy. If an individual is injured while volunteering, likely they could take action against the municipality for their damages. Having this policy in place tends to avoid those claims as they can rely on the benefits from this policy to protect them. And finally, on the next slide, we'll highlight our cyber insurance coverage. This covers cyber attacks against the township up to a limit of $2 million. We've got $2 million of incident response coverage, $2 million of network security and privacy liability coverage, and cyber crime coverage is included. Effectively, and the easiest way to explain this is a ransomware attack. We've all seen the emails come with these ridiculous links that they want us to click that usually we're smart enough to catch them or we're quick enough to catch them. But if they happen to get us on a bad day and we accidentally click those links, a ransomware attack can actually, if you click that link, it can access your computer, lock up your terminal, and actually extend to the network that you're working on and lock up the entire network. If that were to ever happen, our program has an immediate response where we've got our contacts at the township have actually downloaded an app on their smartphone that's connected to their insurance policy. So if ever an incident happens, they can access the app on their phone, click a button, and they're connected with our cyber hotline immediately to have recommendations on guidance on what to do from that point forward. It's a phenomenal response and a coverage that unfortunately is needed more often than not in this day and age. In terms of the response, well, the team at our insurer will actually help you stop the attack and get your systems back up and running. The benefit is designed to get the township back into operation as quickly and effectively as possible. So they will do what they have to do to get access to your systems right away or as quickly as possible to get you back up and running. In terms of coverage limits, cyber insurance coverage limit of $2 million is a good coverage amount in this day and age. When cyber was originally rolled out 5 years ago at the most, it was easy to secure extremely high limits at a fairly inexpensive cost. But as attacks have only increased year after year, limits are being reduced by the insurers. And right now a $2 million limit is seen as a very strong limit for a larger municipal client. Having said that, I hope we haven't gone too long. There's an awful lot to our insurance program, and I wanted to make sure I could cover it in detail, although it's from a high level. I thank you folks very much for your time, and I'm more than happy to take any questions you have at this point.
Well, thank you very much for that very comprehensive presentation. We appreciate it. At this point, committee, if anybody has any questions or comment, there isn't a resolution, so this was for information only. This is a great chance to ask. I see Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I have a two-part question to Mr. Hutchison. I guess the first part to you, sir, with your expertise, and thank you for your presentation. I presume that when and where TML owns the public dock located at our accesses to water, that we are covered for liability when the public uses it. You know, a lot of people come to Township Muskoka Lakes to recreate, whether that's, you know, biking or whatever, kayaking, boating, fishing. When they use our township public wharf, of which we have many throughout the township, what does that feel? I'll ask another part of the question in a minute, but what does that look like to you as an insurer?
Yeah, of course. Great
Hutchison?
question. Great question, and one that we can happily respond to. So our insurance program is designed to cover all of the potential risks that the municipality could face, and municipal marina liability is something that's included under our general liability insurance program. So it's some other insurers will actually have to purchase separate coverage to ensure that. Our program includes it under our liability $50 million limit. So from an insurance standpoint, anytime a third party is on site using the marina, if something were to happen to them, our insurance policy can respond and provide coverage up to that $50 million limit. We do make recommendations to ensure that the docks are maintained in as safe a manner as possible, and to make sure that all of the facilities are well maintained and monitored on a regular basis to ensure that there's no hazards for any individuals using that facility, to make sure that it's there are garbage cans and receptacles located around the docks to make sure that we can keep any debris out of the area, and that they're inspected regularly to make sure that they're in good working order.
Good. Thank you. Supplemental. Yes. So certainly that's what I would have expected you to say. I feel good and feel very comfortable with your response. Thanks for that. So I'm going to just a little twist here. If a private person or persons attach a floating dock to TML property and park their boats and recreate on that dock, how liable is the township for personal injury and loss? So as you would understand it, we have many accesses to water throughout the township. In a particular case, people would affix a dock, a private dock, if you will, to our property, and then use it to park boats and recreate on that dock, swimming, etc. What's your position on that?
Fair enough. So anytime that scenario could occur, there is a potential liability risk to the municipality. From our standpoint, we would ask that you do, if you're aware of it, and you don't take any action, then effectively it's been condoned by the township, and then any liability that could befall an incident that would occur as a relation to that dock extension, then it would totally fall to the municipality. If you're aware of it and take some action and ask the individuals to remove it, that can help limit our exposure. What we want to do as much as possible is find ways to limit our potential exposure. So if we're aware of somebody extending a dock and they haven't followed the appropriate guidelines that we've set out or the agreements that we want to have in place for them to do so, then we'd want to have them remove it immediately. Else we're effectively taking on the additional risk and liability associated with that dock extension. If we're aware of it and we're comfortable with the additional risk if they're following our guidelines and our requirements in relation to the structure and maintenance of that extension, or we're taking on that maintenance, then again, we're willingly taking on that risk, and it's something that our policy would respond to and provide a defense for the township if something were to go wrong.
Good.
Thank you, Councillor Zavitz. Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, and just bear with me for a second. I've got to get my notes up here. I got to talk from script. Just give me a second. Okay, first of all, Mr. Hutchison was very, very informative presentation. I did do a lot of research after receiving the package on Friday into this area, and it's been a passion of mine for almost 20 years on liability insurance for the private sector in cottage country. And so I do, Chair, I do have just a few questions of clarification. And I guess the first area is in the area of volunteers. Mr. Hutchison, for years now, for decades, well, the community have come together to improve, enhance, maintain public township property, such as our trail systems, somewhat in our park systems. They've installed playground equipment, and they've and then with all our clubs through the community centers, we have many volunteers working on serving their community, be it through events like an Easter egg hunt or Christmas party for the children, et cetera, et cetera. And the question I have after just summarizing all this is that recently we were, like I was aware that, or made aware through that we could add the to the insurance policy any volunteer that was under the guidance or of the hall boards. So that's been taken care of. But I'm thinking more about along the line of the other volunteers and how they are insured and protected to providing this great community services. And I go back, I don't know whether Rich Nishikawa was on the line, but we used to do a lot of, at one time, a lot of trail maintenance. We have a really great trail system, but they need repair. And staff just, that we can't keep up on it. So we want to go out, and they would use their own tools. They use their chainsaws, they use their rakes, their shovels. In 2016, I organized the building of 36 gardens where we brought in people's personal equipment to fill them up. This is all done by the public. And in many, many, many cases, or I would say in all cases, at the acknowledgement of the township, maybe not in writing. So I'm just wondering if how we protect these great volunteers. Now, you did talk about personal engineering themselves, but how do we get them named so that the township is aware and is officially informed that they are doing this and is covered under the insurance? That's my first question. Is loaded. Sorry, a lot of there.
So, Councillor Roberts, I just want to be clear. I'm for Mr. Hutchinson's sake. Is the question the protection for our volunteers at this point moving forward, ensuring that there is appropriate insurance? Is that correct?
A protection, then it would be the township to define the process. But yes, how do we get these? Like, we'll just boil it down to very simply. Huckleberry Trail, we want to go out and shore up volunteers have the time to shore up something. How do they get on the insurance while they're doing that with their own equipment?
So I think just I just want to make sure that we're clear that I think the Director of Public Works in this particular case would probably have an opinion as to whether or not we use our own equipment or not. I think what the question from an insurance standpoint, I just want to make sure I'm clear, is we have volunteers in our community doing and participating in community events and community building activities. And we just want to be sure that we have appropriate coverage for those folks and that we understand the process to ensure that anybody who is doing the work for us or is volunteering is included in the process. Is that correct?
Yes, but in addition, they're using their own tools.
I
It's
don't.
important. I see the director.
So
That's what
maybe I could ask Director Becking just to make a quick comment on that. And then Mr. Hutchison, I'll turn it back to you in a minute to answer the question. But as far as volunteers using their own equipment, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm not aware of any current situations where volunteers are actively involved and engaged in maintenance activities. And I'm not aware of situations where they would be required to provide their own tools and equipment. I would have some reservations about that happening in certain circumstances. My suggestion would be that we create there should be a registry of volunteers, and they should be we should have policies in place to address those specific situations. And if there are insurance implications, then we would reach out to our insurers to ensure that they're aware of what's going on and that make sure that the adequate coverages are in place to protect both the volunteers and also the corporation as a whole.
Thank you. Mr. Hutchison.
Yeah, thank you. Great question and a wonderful response just a moment ago, and would echo that same feeling. Our insurance policy, our wording is designed to ensure municipal volunteers. So anybody volunteering for the municipality is protected by our insurance policy the second that they agree to act as a volunteer. And they're covered insofar as they're operating within the scope of their duties as outlined by the municipality. So if the municipality wanted to utilize a volunteer to help manage a intersection at a road race, for example, as long as they're operating within the scope of their duties there, our policy is designed to protect them. What we do recommend is that we have a list of the volunteers. So for each event or each operation that the volunteers are being recruited for, we do have a listing of the volunteers confirming their name, address, phone number, and the times that they're volunteering, just to help us with record keeping. And if there's any scenarios that seem to be higher risk, if they were to be called upon to do maintenance, or if there was an issue where they had to use their own tools, that's something that we would ask to be engaged on. Again, we're just a phone call, an email, or a meeting away. So we're happy to have that conversation from a risk management approach. Again, our coverages are very broad, but from our focus, it's not just how many things can we cover, it's how can we best protect the township. So although we can cover an awful lot of things, there's a lot of instances where our recommendation may be that it's best to avoid that scenario because we're needlessly taking on risks that we don't want to endure.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. I have a few questions, if you don't mind, with Mr. Hutchison. First of all, the third-party insurance. I believe years ago we had it that all halls were covered if they were rented. And now, what is the blanket policy that you would and that provide to ask somebody holding a party for $5 million insurance? It costs more for the insurance than the hall, and I've been through. That's why we got it changed years ago, and I hate to see us lose that. That's question number one.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison.
Yeah, happy to respond. When we reviewed the RFP and submitted our response, it was to align our coverages with the existing program. The existing program, as outlined in the RFP, did not include a blanket low-risk event liability policy. Having said that, we do offer a low risk event liability policy that can be used to cover all third-party rentals of municipal facilities. It's relatively inexpensive. There is an application that needs to be completed where we estimate and outline the number of events we anticipate having in the next 12 months, and that will help the insurers determine a premium. And again, those costs can be passed on to the facility renters. So if somebody's hosting a stag and do with alcohol, we can make recommendations as to the charge that could be passed on to the third party, or it can be something that the municipality chooses to absorb. So those coverages are available. We can do it on a one-off as we're doing now, or we can offer a blanket policy if you so choose to move in that direction.
Okay, thank you, because I know at one time we did add that, and I guess the last time it went out, it was dropped, because that is something. I don't have a problem with them paying for insurance coverage where there's alcohol, but there's a lot of cases that these small groups are using card parties and that should not be paying for insurance. That's one thing. Secondly, do you know of any commercial electric stoves? Because we've had a problem, I believe it's with the insurers, that we've had to take all the electric stoves out. We have some senior citizens who are quite upset that they may have to go to propane, which they're not used to. It's more of a hazard than the electric stoves when they're just warming up. I don't have a problem with the exhaust systems and fire suppressant, but I would like to make sure that we could get electric stoves in where they were before.
Mr.
Oh, I'm
Okay, you're breaking up
not
right
aware
now.
of any requirements. So
Okay, you're breaking up right now, Mr.
Yeah.
Hutchison. I see our Director of Public Works has his hand up, so I'm going to allow him to speak. And hopefully that can. Okay, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking to the previous issue raised by the councillor, we do have a separate group of insurance referred to as game day insurance, which is specific to individual events. That is provided. There is a current policy in place that allows for individuals to buy this insurance at a very nominal rate. It relates to the number of participants in a given event, whatever it may be, and there's a scale as to how much the insurance is depending on the nature of the event. That currently exists, and there's no intention of changing that. Based on current established policy, on occasion, depending on the type of event, the township pays for that insurance on behalf of the group. And again, depending on the type of event, sometimes it is the responsibility of the proponent or the organizer of the event to provide that insurance, but that insurance does exist. With respect to the second question raised by the councillor, we are currently investigating the alternatives for stoves. I am aware that some concern has been expressed about the possibility of using propane as opposed to electric. We're currently investigating that. At this point, there is no decision that has been made, but I do know that there is a preference for electric if it is feasible. So more to follow on that issue.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts. Oh, my apologies, Councillor Edwards. Did you have another comment? You're on mute.
Thank you very much. I guess they muted me. The next one is volunteers, insurance up to 80 years old. Within 3 or 4 years, we're going to lose all our volunteers because it's the seniors that are volunteering, and I don't know if somebody had an accident. I'm not talking about health insurance for them or something like that, but if there was an accident or something like that, would they not be covered? Would they have to then sue the township?
Okay, so I think the question in this, Mr. Hutchinson, is the coverage is for under the age of 80. Is there an option for over the age of 80?
Yes, there is. For a relatively nominal, fairly low additional premium, we can remove the age restriction from the age of 80 and increase that. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Edwards again.
Yes, just supplemental. I would like to see that added. I go to a lot of these halls. I don't ask them their age, but there's a lot of people that are over 80 that are volunteering now in the township. And I don't see any 20 and 30-year-olds. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm nowhere near 80, but I agree with my councillor, my colleague there. Okay, so just two quick other areas. First of all, webinars and training. I guess this would be directed more to staff. I would like to ask, I gotta throw this across the room. There, it's gone. On webinars and training, I would like staff to set up a training session for council, committee, staff, and I'm thinking maybe even, well, maybe not all boards, but for personal and corporate risks associated with defamation and invasion of privacy statements. I just like to understand that, and I think it would be very beneficial to have that. And also the importance of identifying errors and omissions, items to the township and the insurer as soon as possible. Those are the two items I would like to see in a webinar, and I welcome a webinar. I know about 7 or 8 years ago, I was, as a hall board chair then, I was invited to by the township in to cover the insurance that the hall boards would get, and I think we should have something like that. So that's a request. Maybe I just take that offline.
Yes, I was going to ask Councillor Roberts. Some of these are getting fairly specific.
Yeah.
So I would like to. We're already after 10 here, so I just want to make sure that if there's a specific question.
Well, the specific question, Chair, is, can we have that webinar, please?
Thank you. So I will ask our staff member. I think I can see they are making note of this, and I think that can be something that we can take up offline.
Perfect.
So thank you.
I have three more specific questions.
Okay.
Well, two.
Are they ones that could be taken up offline, Councillor Roberts?
Not at all. Not in any way.
Okay,
so during the recent 2023 budget discussion, it was communicated that the township successfully retendered insurance services that yielded a 40% reduction over 2022. In the presentation that we have in front of us, talks about the hard market and the increase in insurance. I just have two questions. I just need a yes or a no on it. And it's given so the first one is that was the in achieving the 40%, were the same did we receive the same coverage with no change no changes? There was no limited changes, higher deductions, and or coverage changes. And that's just basically a yes or no from staff.
Thank you very much for that question. Mr. Hutchison, I think I am going to ask Director Donaldson to make a quick comment, please. Director Donaldson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mazan. So, the tender, the RFP that went out for insurance services was based on our previous coverages, and the coverages in the current policy general program are consistent with that previous coverage.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the second one, given our size and areas of the business risk, does the township have the appropriate insurance policies and coverage in place, in your opinion?
I guess Mr. Hutchison, please.
Yes, without a doubt, very confident in saying that. Again, with our scope, we ensure municipalities of similar size, those smaller and larger, and we're extremely confident that we have the right program in place with the appropriate coverages to meet your needs.
Well, thank you very much. That's a 40% reduction is an amazing achievement for the township and your company. I praise you. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Committee, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing Mr. Hutchison, thank you very much for your time today. Obviously, it sparked a lot of questions and comments, and I can see staff have been making some notes. So appreciate your service and hope you feel better. Have a great day.
Thank you very much for the time. I really appreciate it. Take care,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Committee, I am going to recommend that we just take I'm going to suggest a 10-minute break. That gets us back just after 10:15. And then we will open up the floor to our next delegation. So a quick 10-minute break. Thank you. Okay, committee, I just want to call everybody back. Everybody's back?
Yep.
Okay, at this point, I do see everybody. I would like to move on to item 4B and welcome Mr. Gordon. Thank you very much. I should have checked that beforehand. To walk us through phase 1 of our transportation master plan. And I think I'll turn the floor over just to Director Becking just to welcome him to committee today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Council has directed, we've initiated a transportation master plan. It started in the middle of last year and unfortunately got interrupted by the municipal election. Since that time, however, our consultant, RJ Burnside and Associates, have been working away. And the presentation that you're about to receive from our consultant brings you up to speed in terms of the work that has been accomplished, some of the initial findings that they've identified, and to speak to the path forward from this point. With us today is Mr. Ray Backey, who is the project manager for RJ Burnside, and he'll give a few opening remarks, and then Mr. Wee will dive into the meat of the presentation, and then we'll be happy to try and answer any questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wee. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of Council. We appreciate this time to present an update on the Township of Muskoka Lakes Transportation Master Plan. Our firm, RJ Burnside and Associates, have been working with town staff and stakeholders on the study over the last 5 to 6 months. And we're at a point where we are able to share some findings with Council prior to seeking further input from the public and agency stakeholders. On the next slide, we'll provide an overview of this presentation. I'll start off by just, as Mr. Becking had mentioned, I'll just start off with an introduction of the purpose and the approach to the town's Transportation Master Plan, or TMP. And then I'll pass it over to Gordon Huey from our firm to provide an update of the work completed to date, to present the TMP's draft vision statement and objectives, to present a summary of the phase 1 findings, and to outline our next steps. So as outlined on our next slide, the township is considering transportation needs and opportunities over the next 25 years and beyond. This plan will develop a strategy for road improvements and design practices, trails and lake access, and transit access to accommodate growth and to help achieve the policy objectives of the town, the district, and the province. The goal is to develop a strategy for providing appropriate services for the township level of government related to walking, cycling, transit, lake access, and driving. It will include a plan for capital investment, how these improvements are going to be funded and over what time frame, and support systems related to the capital investment. The TMP is being developed with regard to the environmental assets and policies, so this will very much be an environmentally sensitive plan. And with regard to that, on our next slide, we highlight that the Transportation Master Plan, I know this is a big wordy slide, but the Transportation Master Plan will be carried out in accordance with the Municipal Class Environmental Assessment process, which is an approved process under the Ontario Environmental Assessment Act. The scope has included phase 1 and 2 of the process, where phase 1 is the identification of transportation needs and opportunities and a vision for future conditions, some of which will be summarized today. The second phase is the development of alternative strategies for addressing the needs and opportunities and to achieving that vision, and to select a preferred solution or strategy or combination of solutions. The design and implementation of specific projects will follow in separate studies, and those may be operational studies, capital studies, or specific environmental assessments for infrastructure. So with that, I will pass it over to Gordon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Thank you for having me today. So the draft vision and study objectives in the next slide were developed from the project's team review of township, district, and provincial policies, environmental reviews, the existing transportation conditions, which includes the road network, the active transportation network, the transit, parking, and existing travel behaviors from residents, and a review of the best transportation planning practices or principles. We drafted a vision statement and we brought it to the public, and it went through one revision after getting initial feedback through a public survey. Next slide, please. The draft vision statement reads, by 2047, the township will have a transportation system that supports climate change objectives and protects natural and cultural features, while striving to be sustainable, multimodal, safe, well-connected, and financially responsible. We've developed a series of study objectives, 6 bullet points here, one of them being provide safe access and connectivity between lakes, ensuring that the transportation network is sustainable, efficient, well integrated with the district and provincial network within and surrounding the township, protecting natural and cultural features, producing a strategy that is cost-effective and economically sustainable, achieving climate change objectives, and supporting transportation policies and guidelines to align with provincial and district transportation plans and industry best practices. Next slide, please. This slide shows a brief summary of comments and some of the outreach activities that we have undertaken with residents. A small selection of comments that we received so far from the public include that there is a lack of active transportation infrastructure, there is a need to accommodate for seniors, and that there should be consideration for annual permits for overnight parking at lake accesses. At the first Public Information Center earlier this year, we held a live poll where residents could answer questions that we posed using their phone or through a web page. Results were shown in real time during the presentation. An example of a question we asked was, what are your largest barriers to cycling in the township and Muskoka Lakes? Most cited safety concerns, a lack of need, and a lack of enjoyment. Another outreach activity that we held was an online traffic safety map, which was hosted on the Engage Muskoka webpage. Residents were able to pin transportation concerns on a map, and many of the comments were regarding vehicular speeding and pedestrian and cyclist safety. Next slide, please. So these next few slides dive deeper into the needs and opportunities for the road and bridge network, active transportation network, transit network, lake access, and parking. Based on the team's traffic assessment, we've identified the need to address future capacity concerns along District Road 118 through Port Carling. The assessment also indicated several intersections that will have future traffic capacity concerns or have safety concerns due to its configuration. The project team has also identified 67 roads for potential inclusion in the township's municipally maintained road network. We have also developed engineering standards for township roads that include paved shoulders on rural roads, designated pedestrian clearway space on urban roads, and engineering standards for seasonal roads. Next slide, please. For bridge needs and opportunities, the project team has identified a number of narrow bridge structures. To improve the safety and traffic circulation, there are opportunities to install various signage, such as one-lane warning signs and yield signs, which provides drivers with more clarity as they drive through these structures. For 3 township bridges that have higher posted speed limits, for added safety, there are opportunities to install slow pavement markings to mitigate driver speeding along these bridges. Additionally, Milford Bay Bridge is included as part of our draft proposed active transportation network. As part of this network, there is an opportunity to install share road pavement markings to let drivers know that this is a shared space for both drivers and cyclists to enhance cyclist safety. Next slide, please. For transit opportunities, we recognize that the transit network is mainly in the hands of other authorities. However, there are a few opportunities to make transit more appealing and a more feasible option for residents. The first opportunity is to improve the active transportation integration. So this could mean potentially adding additional design elements at bus stops, such as canopied shelters and benches, making it more comfortable for riders. We are also looking into ways to better connect to the district and Northlander passenger rail system. In rural communities like the township, on-demand transit is a feasible and cost-effective option to enhance this transit connectivity. And that's a discussion that can be started in this TMP and explored in future studies. Next slide, please. Potential active transportation improvements of over 120 kilometers of roads were identified, which include an around the lakes trail shown in the blue dashed line, and secondary connectors to destinations such as off-road trails, community centers, and parks. Part of this potential routing aligns and integrates with the district's active transportation strategy, the provincial cycling network, and the proposed Great Lakes Waterfront Trail. The proposed network would include a mix of paved shoulders, shared routes based on traffic levels and posted speeds. Some township roads would be an ideal candidate for an advisory bike lane pilot study, which is further detailed on the next slide. Next slide, please. Advisory bike lanes are suitable for low traffic volume roads, which have two-way traffic. Certain roadways do not have the traffic volume or road allowance to justify the cost of dedicated cycling facilities. Instead, advisory bike lanes are a more feasible option, which would still be able to distinguish space for pedestrians and cyclists. In other instances where advisory bike lanes have been implemented, vehicular speeds decreased and were proven to be an effective traffic calming measure. We have received resident feedback that both Dawson Road and Milford Bay Road were popular walking routes for families and visitors, but residents also had speeding concerns along these road segments. Upon further review of these road segments, the project team felt that these would be suitable pilot locations. The result of the pilot study would provide an understanding on the effectiveness of reducing speeds and the level in which is raised for the comfort and perceived safety level of pedestrians and cyclists. Next slide, please. For lake access opportunities, we have identified 13 potential access locations over the next 25 years. This assessment was based on criteria including serviceability, proximity to recreational uses, convenience, environmental constraints, and engineering requirements. To address parking demand issues at lakes, we have identified potential locations for lake access parking at existing and proposed accesses, as well as possible permits at lake accesses to accommodate overnight parking demand. Design guidelines for lake accesses were developed to standardize their future development. Next slide, please. Based on our site visits and public feedback, the project team recognizes that parking in Bala and Port Carling can be challenging, especially in the peak summer months. The township's community improvement plan does have a number of strategies to deal with parking that our TMP would also like to incorporate. But to assist in this parking strategy, parking utilization data is recommended to be collected. This would help inform potential strategies such as increasing parking patrol, refining parking time restrictions, looking at existing unpaved lots, reviewing the zoning bylaw, and wayfinding opportunities. Next slide, please. What we presented today is a summary of our phase 1 findings. As Ray mentioned earlier, phase 2 is underway, in which the result would be a set of recommendations and a preferred network strategy. So on behalf of the rest of the team, I just want to thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Committee. Any questions or comments? Okay, Councillor Burry and then Councillor Zavet.
Thank you. And through you, a question for the consultants. Roads are administered at 2 tiers, both the district and the township. Some of us think there's some ability to optimize that. And I'm wondering if that has hit your radar yet, or if you're hearing that from any other of the jurisdictions you're working with.
We, within our scope, through you, Madam Chair, within our scope, we are looking at the rationalization of road jurisdictions, both roads that are not that are not identified within the the township responsibility, but also roads that are township roads that are providing a function that is more oriented to district travel. So we will be looking at those, the rationale for roads, and the OGRA, the Ontario Good Roads Association, has criteria that is used for these types of assessments. So we'll be providing some of that information and feedback, and then discussions with the district through the TAC meetings. And we have, this is a fairly regular exercise especially for more rural jurisdictions. So it's often a very tough negotiated process, but certainly we'll be providing the technical review of the roads under consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Burry. Councillor Zavitz and Councillor Edwards, and I believe Councillor Roberts.
Good, thank you, and through you to the consultant. Couple things, if I might. Last council and up to today, the lake access needs and opportunities is a very near and dear to many people's hearts. We had some very serious implications with a couple of actions of the council in terms of vehicle parking near water last term. And so I know people are watching us and certainly have a lot of hopes pinned on where we take, or where this transportation master plan takes some of the island and water access only people. And so I guess my question to the consultant would be, in the preamble, you talk about safe lake connectivity, and I guess I need to understand that more. I mean, we have one access point between 2 of our lakes, and that's a lock, at least in Port Carling, which is administered through the district. Could you explain what, if I might have part one of my question then, could you explain what safe lake connectivity actually means, please?
I'm not sure who's taking this question, but I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, we recognize that there are challenges, especially for those who are on islands that don't have that rely on sort of parking their vehicle and accessing their cottages or properties by boat, and the challenges are the sort of the combination of providing enough space for vehicles to be stored wherever, whether it's immediately adjacent to boat launch locations or some other remote location. There are safety issues associated with vehicles that are parked on the side of the road where there is insufficient space for both the parking activity and sort of regular vehicle operations. Making sure that the location is suitable for drivers or users of the site to access and egress from their vehicles. So those are the types of things that we're taking a look at, whether there's sufficient space, whether there's enough capacity, and how those operations will continue. But we understand that this is a challenging issue for the township, and we are very much interested in all the stakeholders, what they have to say.
Councillor Zavitz,
Good,
supplemental.
Good. Thank you for that. And certainly what you're saying is it's a work in progress, and you are monitoring and will be coming back to us with further rationale regarding the parking and that piece of it. So I guess my other question would be then, it seems that the 13 locations, potential lake access locations that you've identified are here in front of us. I'm wondering, what about existing accesses? These, I guess one might say they're potential, they are new to us here around the circle. Are there other existing locations that you pondered and left off your list, or felt that the township has those other access points covered?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think Gordon had sort of touched on some of the criteria that were used to identify potential locations or higher priority locations. And we have sort of assessed a much longer list of potential sites, and what has been presented are the ones that are sort of seem to be most suitable from a connectivity to key destinations, from a sort of an opportunity standpoint, is that there's enough space and room. And I think on one of the previous slides, Gordon did sort of highlight some of those criteria. I don't know, Gordon, if you want to sort of add anything there.
Yep. Through you, Madam Chair, we looked at a few things such as serviceability, proximity to recreational uses, convenience, and to touch upon your point, Councillor, on the existing locations, we reviewed those for adequate amenities and design criteria. And for these 13 new locations, they're more for ensuring that the future demand is met, to ensure that future tourists and visitors will have adequate access to lakes.
Thank you. So potentially on our next iteration, perhaps we could have staff overlay what we have currently with the possibility of future, just as a visual, because not everybody has the same shared understanding of all access points throughout the township. Councillor Zavitz, do you have a separate question or?
Thank you. It is a supplemental yet again, and thank you for allowing that. I guess my thought would be, as it relates to these 13 locations, it is rather exciting in that some of these locations could actually salve some of the challenges of last year on parts of, for example, Lake Muskoka, where cottager or water access people could actually source out some of these newer suggested locations, and instead of going to, if I might, Bull Morris, perhaps they go here or there. So I'm excited by that. I think they will be, but I guess the onus will be on us to actually move this forward and see the opportunity and seize that and move forward with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards, Councillor Roberts, and then Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you. One of the things with the pedestrian thing that really bugs me is we don't put up signs or anything on our website to tell people to walk facing the traffic, but it's under the Highway Traffic Act. And I see people coming up and they're walking all over the place. No wonder there's not more accidents, but I think we should be stressing that. And that's one of the things that I'd like to see, even some signs up for the summer. They just don't seem to teach it in school anymore. It's a shame. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, going back to what Councillor Zavitz said last year, one of our hottest buttons was water access for islanders, and they have restricted access. And during the meetings, we said then, or I kind of coached my constituents, that the master plan would really help out in this area. I'm not hearing anything about bikes and stuff with safety from the constituents, or not much about roads, but I hear a lot about water access properties. And I think I have a question and a comment. During the survey, did the survey include, just remind me, did the survey include a question that pertained to access for water access properties and their thoughts? That's the question. Then I have
through you, Madam Chair. The survey did include questions about lake accesses, specifically which I don't remember at the top of my head, but I do remember including a lake access question, especially to properties.
Okay, so then just to follow up on a comment, we're not really, in my opinion, right now, the constituents are not too worried about the future. Any future things we can do are going to be fantastic. What they're worried about is their solution right now or in the immediate future. So, and more access. But so for the constituents from Ward B, I really want maybe to come back and have from the consultant out of the box thinking on how we can improve. And we'll just say in the Beaumaris area, we know it's going to be very difficult to include that. But what are the out of the box worldwide type of solutions that we could offer to our constituents and to give them relief? Maybe they have to sponsor it or what? We would not this time, let's not constrain that, but we need solutions for them.
Okay, Councilor Roberts, if I could, I think what the question I'm going to ask staff, just to make a quick comment, will the kind of completed plan include some short-term, medium-term, and long-term plans to help address what I think you're saying? Is there some immediate need as we plan for the future? So, Director Becking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're correct. The terms of reference does request that the consultant provide so immediate term, short term, and longer term recommendations, not only with respect to the issues relating to water access, but to all recommendations within the scope of the transportation master plan. So to your question, yes, that will be absolutely addressed.
So just as a quick, so for all understanding, the end document will look somewhat similar to the recreation master plan in that there will be a series of recommendations and next steps that could be employed, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have just a quick question regarding the list of 13 lake access needs. It's as a representative of Ward C and as a Lake Joe Islander, I find it shocking that for a 25-year plan, potentially, there's not a single Lake Joseph location on this list. And I don't know what the history is, whether there was some background, but it does seem a bit odd given that there's so much new island development, particularly going north on Lake Joe, as when you're planning ahead, Lake Joe is one of the 3 major lakes. So I don't know what the history is, if you could elaborate.
Yes, I think what I'm going to, I see Director Becking has his hand up, and I think this talks to what's our current status, layering in there with what's maybe some suggested recommendations, but I'll turn it over to Director Becking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The consulting team has looked at this, and these are very preliminary findings. They're not comprehensive, as they're predominantly based on existing township road allowances. And I would suggest that there are other opportunities that need to be explored. This is a very preliminary look at the situation. There will be more detail provided in the next phase of recommendations. So I would caution committee not to become anxious about the list. The list is very, very preliminary. Certainly if there are specific locations that any member of committee or council or the public wish us to explore, we'd be happy to do so.
So just for my clarification and for committee's clarification, if there is something, this is early on in the project, and this is a normal practice is for the consultant to come. By no means is this the final project. If there are noted areas of concern or questions or opportunity that, you know, doesn't stop here. If you think of something afterwards, is the appropriate communication to come through you, Director Becking, and you can share with the consultant?
That's correct, Madam Chair. Members of committee and council and the public are at liberty to contact me directly, and I'll make sure that that information gets passed on to the consultants. We also have a webpage where comments can be submitted, and they will be taken into consideration as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Supplemental?
Yeah, I would just hope, thank you very much. That's very helpful. I would just hope that there would be a plan to encompass the lake system, which includes Lake Joe. So I'd expect that when you come back with a more formal list, there should be a few Lake Joe locations. You got a 3 Mile Lake location. You got to have a couple of Lake Joe locations given its size.
So just before I turn it over to our CAO, I also do want to make a quick question/comment that we do connect with other neighboring communities. And it might be helpful on a future map if the neighboring communities also have access points.
Like Seguin, you mean?
Correct. So just a note to staff that it would be helpful just to see it a little bit more broadly. Our CAO would also like to make a quick comment.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and good morning, members of committee. So just a sort of a education point for new members of council and a reminder for returning members. So when we discussed this issue at length during the last term, staff brought forward a number of reports, and certainly the public access and parking related provision was part of the solution we identified. We also identified the provision of private access, and that's afforded through our planning policy. So where new lot creation is being contemplated, there is a requirement for provision of private access, and so that is an option available to island owners as well. I appreciate there's probably a preference for public access, but nonetheless, private access still is an option that could and should be contemplated. Thank you.
I just want to make sure before I come back to you, Councillor Zavitz, is there any other members of committee? Okay. On the transportation master plan, Councillor Zavitz.
Good, thank you. Through you. I guess as we move into the next phase of this, which will be a second public interface interaction, I really hope that we do everything we can to market the notion that we are entertaining the public's commentary. We invite their comments, we invite their participation. You know, when we did the recreation master plan, we had members of the public as part of a committee. And in this particular case of the transportation master plan, for the reasons that we have, we do not have a public entity as we don't have a committee, right? So this is a little different structure. So what I am very fingers crossed that when we go to the public the second time, that there's adequate time and presence for them to participate. And then from there, we go to the final, if you will, maturation of a plan that will take into account this very vital piece of this puzzle. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, Director Becking?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I couldn't agree with Councillor Moore. There is a very robust plan in place to do precisely as he's describing, and we will carry on with that. We've engaged representatives from surrounding communities as well as the district in an advisory group. We have used all of the venues at our disposal to engage the public, and we will continue to do so. No stone will be left unturned in terms of attempting to get the public to engage in the process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, committee. Seeing no other questions, I actually do have one question for probably Director Becking, and I just wanted to know, and this actually talks more to the active transportation piece. So as I know, the primary method for the cycling seems to be driven by the district plan of widening the roads. Is that correct? And we are currently just every year we undergo projects of widening roads. Just because we now have some input coming in, are there any projects that we are currently undertaking that might fit within this, that it would just be wise for council to be aware of if there's an opportunity to do something right today versus doing a project today and not contemplating future? So
there are two projects currently on this year's work plan that I think would benefit from consideration. Council has approved the budget, which includes a plan to upgrade and reconstruct Torrance Road and East Bay Road. And the other project that leaps to mind is the resurfacing and paving of Beaumaris Road from Milford Bay to down to the marina. Both of those roads fall into the sort of 1,000 to 2,000 vehicles a day and are fairly active in terms of other forms of transportation. The planning that has gone on to this point involves reinstating the roadway to its existing extent. There may be merit to adding additional width to the paved surface in order to accommodate cyclists and other forms of active transportation. I would suggest to committee and council that now is the time to do that work. Adding additional width in a retrofit situation will still produce a reasonable surface, but it will not stand up as well as if the paved surface were continuous at the time of the paving of the roadway. So those would be the two that I think council should consider.
okay, so without, we obviously don't have anything in front of us today. So is the opportunity for that to come forward for a future conversation and or?
It could do if committee would like to have staff come back, and we can give you an identified option to widen the paved surface further, and what the financial implications. And then it's up to council to decide whether or not they choose to proceed at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa, I now see your hand up.
Thank you. Sorry, I suppose I was going to approach it a little bit differently, and mostly ask. I should preface. I'm not honestly interested in finding out what that cost would be. I'm interested in doing the right job first time out. So I do notice, for instance, on East Bay Road, that a lot of measures have been taken, already happened to widen the road, which is greatly appreciated. I can see the future, I suppose, but absolutely right. This is the time to do it. I actually feel that at this meeting that we actually draft a resolution of some form to say that we want to improve both of these projects, because I feel that every road that we start working on in the future should always be, this should always be part of it. So dealing with what we're doing, as Director Beckigan mentioned, Beaumaris and East Bay, I would like to see council move it forward today. Waiting 2-3 months is not going to help the director at all. But I'm just saying, if we agree that we can absorb the cost to do it right, then we should move a resolution forward today so it can give the correct response back. And if it has to go to council, then that's another month. But I'm just saying.
Okay. Without it taking over our transportation master plan presentation, I think the timing for me was, while we have a consultant who could give us some further guidance as to this is a good decision, I do think there are financial implications when we make a widening of a road. And I agree with you that these things seem to be coming together. Director Becking, might I ask, what is the recommended approach on your end, so that we're not stopping work on your end, but we also could be contemplating this as a council decision moving forward?
My suggestion of process, and I'll look to the clerk to confirm this, would be that committee pass a resolution directing that the paved surface on those two roads be widened to accommodate active transportation. That would then form a part of the minutes. The minutes would be adopted by council next month. And in the interim, I can do what work is necessary to make sure that is possible and viable. And then provided council concurs and agrees to the proposed change, then we'll incorporate it into the current year's works.
So committee, I just want to do this. We're bringing something up that's new, and I just want to make sure that we are that next step, so we could have staff draft a resolution that could come to council next month. But Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. Through you, I just want to make sure I know what we're talking about. Are we talking about passing a resolution to do something, the cost of which we don't know yet?
Yes.
After the last 2 months of grinding nickels to turn them into dimes, we're going to start doing things without understanding the cost implication. I think I'm prepared to make the motion to get the costing in front of us for next month, but I don't like passing resolutions that are going to incur some unknown expense that we won't frankly have any control over once we kick the project off. The price is what it is.
Okay. So Director Becking, is that a process that does it inhibit you in any way?
No, Madam Chair. To the mayor's point, I'm not suggesting that I'm going to ask you to pass a resolution giving me a blank check. Quite to the contrary, I will do the work necessary so that when it comes time to make the decision next month, you're making an informed decision. I'll provide you with cost estimates of what it will take, and you can then decide what you choose to do.
Okay, thank you. I think
Do it under new business if you wish.
I think we're going to bring this topic up under new business so we can allow our consultants to leave and continue on with their day. So thank you very much for your time. I'm not seeing any other questions. I just do at this. Okay, great. Thank you both very much for your time today. And we look forward to your next reports and presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on, and we will bring that topic up under new business. We are now on to Public Works. Nothing, great. We are now on to our presentation item, trying to see 7A. And I'm not sure, is it Chief Morrell? Thank you.
Through you, Chair Mazan, to committee. Thank you. I am here today to present to you a report that was actually supposed to come from the fire prevention officer, but he took his holidays, well-deserved holidays during this period. In front of you is a report about a proposed update to our burning bylaw. In this burning bylaw, you will see that the purpose of a burning bylaw in general is to give a permit process to the constituents so they can have purposeful burns, open air burns within the township to occur safely in accordance with the rules and regulations passed by this council and also pursuant to the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. Council gave 3 readings to an updated burning bylaw in 2018, which included at that time new definitions and regulations. In this updated burning bylaw, you will see enhanced definitions and regulations. Some of those enhancements are in the fire size. We are asking council to review this current bylaw and review the piece of the fire size. Currently, the bylaw in place permits 2 different fire sizes. One is a small contained fire of 1 meter by 1 meter in size, which does not require a permit if it is burned after hours. The other is a fire of over the same, up to 3 meters by 2 meters, which does require a permit if it is burning during the day. This has presented challenges to staff in applying enforcement and has represented confusion for the public. Permitting one fire size will facilitate a streamlined process and also allow online permitting. The online burn permit program is a tool that firefighters can use to instantly check to see if someone has an active burn permit. This tool does not allow for 2 different fire sizes. The current bylaw links the 2 fire sizes to zoning as well, which is a provision that should be removed from the bylaw. It is cumbersome and does not allow for easy access or easy permitting. Other improvements in the bylaw will ensure more clarity through enforcement and have additional defined terms and use terminology previously approved in other bylaws by the Ministry of Attorney General, and also takes into consideration new enhanced penalties through the administrative penalty system. Just want to make sure I got that straight. Council may have heard that before, the AMPS program. I now stand for questions.
Thank you. Do we have the delegation now?
Yeah, I'm answering. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Do I have?
Yeah. Do you want to let Mr. sit in?
Thank you. I believe we have a delegation.
Two minutes.
Oh, there you are. Welcome, Mr. Sift.
Hello, everybody. Jason.
Thanks.
Sift.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Mr. Sift, I'm being told that we have 2 minutes and our
Yes.
clerk has a timer going beside me, just to let you know. So if you hear an iPhone bling, it means you've got close.
No problem. I plan to make this one quickly.
Thank you.
Jason Sift, 3687 Highway 118 West, Muskoka.
Welcome, Mr. Sift.
Hello, everybody. Jason
Thanks.
Sift.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Wow, sorry.
Oh,
I just
I
had a
think-
thing going on with my.
I think you might have your second recording on. Is that
I do.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it's fixed now. Wow. Sorry.
Start over.
Jason Sift, 3687 Highway 118 West, Port Carling, POB 1J0. I'll make today really quick. This actually came to my attention yesterday. I have 0 problems with fire prevention. Whatever we got to do to make it safe for everybody. I think we're all on board with that. I think for the industry and the community, losing the ability to have a fire larger than 1 by 1 meter is a real struggle for us. Not only, most sites are cleared, when they clear the trees, the logs are obviously removed, but a lot of the brush is burned on site. That's going to increase hauling. We have nowhere really to dump it right now. Brent Quarry is the only one that allows you to dump brush. The township, we aren't allowed to commercially dump in brush in there, to my knowledge. So only residences are allowed to. So there's a kind of a range of issues if we lose that larger fire size. Whatever the fire departments want us to do to be safe, make sure that, you know, everything's safe. I think we're always on board with that. But I do think there needs to be some provisions for a larger size fire like we've had in the past. I know that I can understand that maybe they don't want homeowners burning larger fires that don't have the knowledge of using it and don't have a understanding with the township or with the fire department. We have larger fires, and we've got, you know, I've got fairly good relationship with both with the chief and with Doug, and you know, we're happy to implement whatever, even we implement things that they ask us to implement that aren't even in the bylaw, just because we want to all be safe and have really good open communication with them. So the other thing is we don't want to lose the ability to burn in the winter. I'm not sure if it was a full intention of the bylaw to write it that way, but in the winter we were always allowed to burn outside of that period. But in how the wording was, it wasn't 100% clear if that's still going to be allowed. So my request is that we still just look at this and get some advice. I've talked to a couple other contractors just to get their opinions, and I got pretty much a consistent view from everybody I've talked to. So, and I'm sure some councils have heard from a few people as well. So thank you for my time today.
Thank you. And that was literally 2 minutes. Good work.
I winged it too.
Thank you. It's amazing how quickly time can go, right? Okay, Chief Morrell.
Through you, Chair, I want to thank the delegate for his presentation. We did talk on the phone yesterday, so I was well aware that he was going to be making a presentation on behalf of those that burn commercial fires in the area. We are aware of the two concerns that the delegate mentions. The number one concern being the oversized fires that are a requirement for the business purposes that are out there. There is a provision in the current bylaw that sits before council. I would draw council's attention to the proposed bylaw section 5.6, where it indicates that the fire chief may alter, amend, or attach such conditions as the fire chief deems appropriate to any permit approval. This would be the area that we would use to permit approval for commercial applications, which would then meet the intent of a burn bylaw. I just want to revisit this piece. A burn bylaw is really a permit process or permission given to somebody in writing that allows safeguards to take place. So actually it's the commercial fires that we would want to have greater controls over to ensure that they've got the proper setbacks and all the safety mechanisms are in place. So for those applicants making a permit application and they want to have an oversized fire, they would merely put in for a normal permit. And then they would send an email saying that we would like to request an oversized fire. We would go to the property, we would bill them a fee, which is well documented in our fees and charges bylaw. And we would then write them a written letter that they would maintain on property and we would maintain in record to allow for the oversized fire or any other special provision that they would like for us to evaluate. The second piece, I want to draw council's attention to section 7.1. This is a section in the proposed draft bylaw that we do want to amend. The section that says announcements notifying the public, we would like to take that out and take it out right to the end by throughout the township. This committee could choose to do that, but we have actually seen concerns in the past where we have tried to apply penalties to people and they have indicated that they were not notified via the radio station they listened to that there was a fire ban in process. So our attorney or our representative for the prosecution staff has recommended that we remove that one clause that's in there. Hope this satisfies the delegates' concerns.
Sorry, thank you. I wasn't sure if it, did we talk to the burning in the winter?
Yes. So burning in the winter, we would look to amend the front part of the bylaw. And this is something that is simply, it was an oversight that there's really no mechanism in place for us today to regulate fires that occur in the winter. A lot of those fires that actually occur in the winter usually happen on the ice, which is actually a part that is not a part of the township. But yes, we could actually remove the part where, because I think where it's falling in is we're saying we're regulating all fires in the fire season. That's where we need to keep to maintain the controls is during the fire season. Outside of the fire season, the same rules would apply, but that's where the written permission would be helpful for the delegate because they would be allowed to have the oversized fire, but the regular rules would apply. Okay. So that by answering the first question on size, we're answering the second question about the winter time.
Okay. So just so I'm clear, if I was somebody in our community today, it would be consistent now with neighboring municipalities that everybody with a permission, with a permit could do a 1-by-1 meter, which is 3 feet by 3 feet fire. In the event that one needed a larger fire, as Mr. Sift has brought forward, there is a mechanism or a process, but whereby they would ask for a further permit from you or permission. And then to further extend this, they would still be allowed to do fire burns in the winter.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. We would not look to regulate fires in the wintertime, other than fires, outdoor fires that become out of control. So the general provisions of a normal outdoor fire would apply year round.
Right.
It's just that size piece that seems to be the obstacle for the delegate.
And does this bylaw also then strengthen your ability to go to fires because things are more consistent?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. I'll just give for committee's input here. Over the last 6 years, there were 327 calls that were called in as burn complaints. That's 55 calls per year just on burn complaints. 138 of them were burning complaints resulting in people having permits and burning within the limits, resulting in no issues. With this new process, we would actually have access to that permit before we go to the property, which would limit how many red trucks are screaming down a road trying to go to a property to figure out if it's a real fire or not. 25 of those 327 calls were for unattended fires. So a lot of times when we arrive at an unattended fire, people use a similar explanation, which is, I was not aware that I needed to attend my fire. A permit process helps alleviate that. An online permit process actually makes it so that every time somebody burns, they have to check to see if they can burn that day. The atmospheric conditions, all that stuff, all the new rules come back into play. And it also relates to immediate communication with the person. If there's a burn ban put into effect, they immediately get notified through the application that they shouldn't be burning. So that would alleviate that problem. 30% of those calls that were called in as burning complaints were resulted in a violation of the bylaw, usually due to size, wind, or proximity to a fuel source. Again, those rules would be resident on the person's phone with that burn permit, which would also give us the ability to say in court that the person was provided the rules and in essence should have known better. Over the last 6 years, just to give council an idea of actual risks, 175 outdoor fire calls have come in. 101 of those, which is well over half, were the majority of hydroline incidents and fires caused by trains along the tracks. However, 44 of those calls did not result in any kind of actual, what we would call cause. So we're not quite sure why those fires occur. 27 of those burning calls ended with people burning within the bylaw. And again, that would not relate to us sending 4 vehicles screaming down a road, because we would know the person has a permit. We would send 1 vehicle to go check those properties out.
Thank you. I would not be, I'm assuming there's a resolution. I would not be moving this forward today. There's a few unanswered things that, yes, we can change down the road. I don't like to make changes down the road. I like to approve something that's written the way that we intended. I do have concerns about contractors and the ability for burn. But I also, in reading the report, I was very concerned, and then listening to the fire chief's explanation of what he wants to get done, I was very concerned because the report mentioned the burden on the fire department, and that we're trying to lighten the burden on the fire department by a different reporting method. But in fact, I heard in fact that we're now going to have to ask contractors to do extra steps, which would mean the fire department would be burdened that much heavier. So that's what I'd like to have a better understanding of before I approve this particular resolution.
Sorry, Chair, we cannot hear you. Chair?
I forgot to put my mic on. Thank you very much, Councillor Roberts. What I was saying is I realized that I actually do have a resolution in front of me, which was different than the rest of this morning when we were listening for information purposes. So just getting back to the discipline of asking a question just for clarification or understanding of the chief first, then I will read the resolution, then we can open it up for debate. So I'm just going to ask committee if there's a specific question for the chief, and then I will read the resolution, and then we can talk about what we want to do next as next steps. So Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. And through you, I want to make sure we address the issues that Mr. Sift raised on behalf of other contractors who obviously avail themselves of burning as part of their normal business. I think I heard you verbally agree to most, if not all, of Mr. Sift's concerns, but I actually don't think that the document that's in front of us supports the kinds of things that you're saying. So my recommendation strongly would be go back to the document and let's make sure it reflects what I think I heard you say in terms of accommodating the needs of the contractor before we decide whether we're going to approve it or not. I don't see here what you're saying. I like what you're saying. I just don't think it's reflected in the document.
So is the question then, are the changes that you're talking about reflected in the current document? Or do you need to make amendments to the document in order to be able to?
Well, through you, Chair, to committee, I guess what we could do is we could bring back to this committee a different permitting process, very similar to the former permitting process, which would be an allowance. And in order to get specificity into that process, council would then, committee would then have to approve again 2 different size fires. It's a very complicated matter. A lot of other
I think what I'm hearing though, just sorry to interrupt. I think what I'm trying to get to is I think there's a bit of confusion as is what is written in this current bylaw process deliver against the questions that we are being asked from our community.
Yes, it can. So,
but it doesn't today.
No, it does not. So if I might be able to explain a couple pieces here. So councils are allowed to make certain bylaws that regulate fires in their community. And a couple of those bylaws have to do with fire routes, which this body has acknowledged and put into place. The other one is about outdoor burning. And what that does is it gives description to the fire chief and the chief fire officials as we enhance and as we enact the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. So in that act, under regulation 2444, it says an outdoor fire as approved is basically the verbiage that it uses. That approved process is this bylaw. So going to this bylaw, in this bylaw, we use a clause that allows for the fire chief to give approvals for a different size of outdoor burn. If this body would not like that provision to be in this bylaw, we would then to be a little bit more specific about what this body would like to have occur for that outdoor fire size. And my recommendation would be that if we bring things forward to this committee, that we make it consistent with the MNRF's Forest Fire Prevention Act agreement on outdoor fires and their sizes, and consistent with our neighbors, the neighboring municipalities, who also use a provision, a clause in their burning bylaws that state we can approve, the chief fire official may approve an outdoor fire.
Okay, so I am going to again just remind committee, let's ask clarifying questions. I am going to read the resolution and then we can determine what the next steps so that we can give specific direction to staff as to what we would like to see if we would like something amended. So Councillor Roberts, do you have a specific question? Thank you.
Okay, I would like to ask Mr. Sift a question. Do I do it now or when after the resolution is read?
I don't know if Mr. Sift is still here. Is he still here? Okay, Mr. Sift, apparently we have a question for you. So Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, Mr. Sift, you've listened to the discussions that we just had. Does this come more in line with what your industry would hope to achieve once we vote on this?
Yeah, I think so. I think it sounds like we're all on the same page. It sounds like Chief Morel is as well. I think it's maybe just how it's written in bylaw that maybe there's just a little bit of confusion on. Chief Morrell, I guess I'd say, couldn't you just put in 3.2 at the end of it unless otherwise agreed in writing? 3.2 is the one where it says the open air fire shall not exceed 1 meter in diameter and 1 meter in diameter in height. So could you not just put something there that just gives like a little bit of leeway to say that, hey, if you want something bigger, come talk to us, instead of having it just down in 5.6 where it just pretty much says you can change anything at your discretion? Just so that people know that, hey, call us, and there is some other options. People may not get all the way to 5.6. Just a thought, I guess. I think that would make it a little clearer. And then I think Chief Morrell, you said you were going to edit the timeline part, so it has to come back and we have to see it again anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's a good idea. And I can see that we're making some note. I am going to ask Councillor Bosemorth if you have a specific question as well. And then I will read the resolution. And then we can have the conversation as to next steps.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have a couple of specific questions. If you, can you burn at night without a permit, as long as it's low, medium, or high ratings?
Through you, Chair, yes, you can. You can burn at night, and you can currently do that today. Anything 1 by 1, you can burn. Currently, the way it is 2 hours before sunset and up to 2 hours after sunrise. And that'll maintain the same in this permit process. That will have no effect on the permit process.
Okay, thank you.
Second question, if I may ask, is does the permit allow daytime burning? Sorry, does the bylaw allow daytime burning if you have a permit?
Yes, that's the primary reason for the permit process, is for the daytime burns. So think of a campground, for example, they would have daytime burning.
Okay. Thank you. So Councillor Roberts, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. Just follow up from my previous councillor. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm clear. So during a fire ban, you can have a fire, be my misunderstanding. During fire ban, you can have a fire at night? I see. Then I misinterpreted. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, committee, I am going to read this resolution, and then we're going to determine what we want to do as next step. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-034 being an updated bylaw to regulate the setting of fires, preventing the spreading of fires, and to establish a fire permit system for the Township of Muskoka Lakes be given 3 readings. So at this point, I'd like to bring up a question to the committee. Are there comments? Do we want to approve this as is? Would we like to amend it? Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I am requesting, Chair, that we send this back and it comes back to General Finance with all of the revisions that have been discussed today. I don't feel confident in passing this bylaw and then hoping that those changes will be made. I think that we have to be more transparent. And in fact, even some of the changes that we discussed, I'm concerned that they should be brought forward to the public again before voted on.
Okay, so I think the question then becomes, do we want this report with its changes to come back to General and Finance next month or to Council? So I'm looking to committee just to give a general sense. I see both Councillor Edwards and Councillor Bosemorth.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to see it come back as well. And that, I think it's a little premature. One of the things I'm really concerned about is 3.2, where it says a fire should not be located within 6 meters, which is 20 feet from any combustible material. If you take that, that's basically a 40-foot circle. And then you're probably going to have to clear trees and brush and that to get the fire. And that I realize what we're trying to do, but I think if you're watching a fire and you're there and you have something to put it out, I'm not sure if that's what we want with our tree cutting bylaw and everything else like that. So I think there's some things that we could straighten up. Also with contractors and even farmers. I have a neighbor when every time they were burning, they would phone to let us know they were burning so we wouldn't panic. And that which is the right thing to do. But get a permit every time a contractor wants to burn and have it inspected. I think that's a little bit much. I think if the contractor goes and gets training from the fire department, and then they could turn around and burn with a permit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Boseworth.
Thank you, Chair. It is my belief that our bylaws need to be clearly understandable. The people reading them need to understand why we have them, what we're trying to achieve. And interestingly enough, in this meeting, I think this one's pretty obvious. We want to encourage fire safety, but there was another reason that I hadn't realized, and that is we also want to reduce the number of unnecessary call outs by the fire department. So I think, but and that isn't particularly clear. So for our constituents to actually be able to follow this, I find this this bylaw is very difficult. It's not easy to understand, and it may be you may be able to enforce it well, but frankly, I could not figure it out. I read it 2 or 3 times until I actually created a chart. And one thing that's lacking in this bylaw is telling you when you can burn. And you know, you can read these things 3 times and still not know that you can burn at night without a bylaw, without a permit. And we cannot expect our constituents to be able to go through this bylaw 2 or 3 times to try to figure out what it is, what they can do. So I would agree that this needs to be sent back, but we need to fix up the language here. And if we can't because of legal reasons, then we need a communication plan that makes it a lot easier for our constituents to quickly determine when they need a permit, when they cannot burn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do see Mayor Kelly, did you have your hand up?
Councillor Bosenworth just said exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, excellent. So I'm getting the feeling from the group that we would like to see this come back to general and finance with some, now that you've heard from comments today, with a refined bylaw. So we are going to postpone, not defer, right? So we are going to postpone this. So I'm just getting some coaching from our clerk.
So I'll print a resolution. Yes, I've drafted a brief resolution to recommend that that the previous resolution read by the chair be postponed in order to include recommendations and clarifications proposed by committee. Does that satisfy everyone here? And we have the recording to reference back to if necessary.
Okay, so do you want me to read this then? Can I just read it off your computer and then? Excellent. Okay.
If it's spelled.
Okay. Okay, so moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the resolution be postponed in order to include recommendations and clarifications proposed by committee. All those in favor? I don't have to. Thank you. That carries. So thank you very much, Chief Morrell.
Double-sided, sorry. Do it again.
So what I am going to propose, I do know that we have a few more items under new business. We did have a draft resolution that we wanted to have.
It's printing out.
It's printing. Excellent. I'm going to suggest that we just take a 7-minute break, just to give anybody who needs a quick refresh break here. Well, that takes us now to 20 to 12 with the goal that we can try and complete this morning's meeting and have a full lunch. So anybody who needs to take a quick break, thank you. Okay, thank you. Committee, are we back? I see those on Zoom. Before we move into the close of this meeting today. The first is under unfinished business. As noted during our transportation master plan discussion, there was a concept brought up about the expansion of some roads that are currently under the jurisdiction of Director of Public Works for work this year. And so the request would be that he comes back with a more fulsome report at a future meeting. So I need to read two resolutions. The first is to do that because it wasn't, and we will screen share it, is just to ensure we have 2/3 vote in order to read the second motion. So I'm going to begin with this one. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Whereas 3.5.1.6 of Township Council Procedure Bylaw 2019-079 provides that any motion may be introduced without notice if council, without debate, dispenses with notice by a 2/3 vote. Now therefore be it resolved that Township Council hereby dispenses with notice to consider and vote on the following. That the Director of Public Works report directly to council?
Oh, to committee.
To committee. To council
We're going back to council.
on
Okay.
the additional costs to widen the Torrance East Bay Road and Beaumaris Road projects for active transportation purposes. So all of those in favor? Okay, thank you. That carries. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I will read the motion. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the Director of Public Works report directly to council on the additional cost to widen the Torrance East Bay Road and Beaumaris Road projects for active transportation purposes. All those in favor?
Sorry, could you read that one more time a little slower?
That's fine. And perhaps I could ask that it's also shared on the screen.
It's the
Moved.
next one down. It's the next one down.
I apologize. I was reading quickly. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the Director of Public Works report directly to council on the additional costs to widen the Torrance East Bay Road and Beaumaris Road projects for active transportation purposes. All those in favor? Thank you. Yeah.
Potentially widen the road?
Yeah, potential.
You need to put it.
Well, I think that will be under, I don't know if it needs to be potential, or maybe I should ask staff. Does it need to be potential? It's just going to be part of the report, and then we get to decide whether or not we choose to do that. I think I've read the question and I think we voted, so that kind of came up after the fact. Staff, do we have?
Nothing will happen until council directs
Right.
it. So the word potential really doesn't add anything to the resolution in my mind, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I do want to be clear. I think I read the question and the vote was taken. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you. Now I would like to move on to item number 10, which is new business. Consideration of a resolution on the Milford Bay Community Center replacement of HVAC system. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Public Works, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As council approved the budget, included in it was a project to replace the current HVAC system with a boiler, propane fired boilers heating system. It certainly is an efficient system in terms of its ability to generate heat. It is not, however, perhaps the most efficient system in terms of the longer term, especially considering if you get into issues of environmental compliance and so forth, and greenhouse gases, and being consistent with the overall council direction and through the strategic plan to put environmental issues first and foremost in decisions. Councillor Burry has raised some concerns with me about whether this is the wisest course of action for council in terms of the longer term. Typically in most decision-making processes, upfront costs is the primary consideration. But to the councillor's point, what is the cheapest solution in the short term is not necessarily the cheapest or wisest decision in the longer term. To that end, the resolution before you would direct me to take a pause on the current project, investigate the option of a electrically run heat pump system that would be far more environmentally friendly and would promote environmental consciousness as it relates to this facility. I would suggest to you that of all of our community centers, Milford Bay is arguably one of the better used, and therefore if there is a facility that is worth making a longer term investment in, this is the one that needs it and deserves it. There are problems with the existing building and how it was constructed that are not conducive to good energy management, and we need to look at that as part of a broader review of the overall building. So to that end, Madam Chair, the resolution directs me to do a further investigation of the merits of a heat pump system, to look at the economics of it as well as the environmental impact of it relative to the current alternative, and to come back and report to committee and council to give you a further advice as to what might be the preferred option going forward.
Okay, thank you very much for that nice background. Councillor Burry, do you have, just given this was your thought coming forward, did you have anything you wanted to add to those comments, or would you like me to read the resolution?
The only point that maybe the public doesn't understand is the best time to deal with the physical plant for heating, ventilation, and cooling is when the current system is dead. The technical term, dead, not allowed to be used anymore. And so we've got an opportunity here to do it right, I think. And Director Becking has been terrifically responsive to taking a look to see how we can do this for the betterment of the township in the long run. You know, we're talking 20, 25 years, and you know, my hope is that if we can do it right this one, then we can do them one community center at a time, typically as the HVAC dies.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz, I just want to be sure, is there a question for staff on this one? Or is it a comment? Because I can read the resolution and then we can have any kind of comment. It's a question. Okay.
Thank you. Through you to Director Becking. I guess the thing that I'm missing in this resolution here is, yeah, I'd like to understand the costing associated, I guess the costing, and also what happens with the budget that we just approved. Are we putting this thing off for a month, 3 months? Are we actually, should we pull the 2023 Milford Bay allotment for this HVAC system out of the budget and it's for next year? That's been unclear. So I'd like clarity on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Becking?
I think, Madam Chair, at this point, the answer to the question is premature. I think we need to take a half step back, do some additional analysis. We will come forward with costings and a long-term financial plan. It may, in the final analysis, prove that that a heat pump system is the most appropriate way to proceed, and we will adjust our work plan accordingly if that becomes necessary. If in the alternative that a heat pump system is not a viable alternative, then we will simply proceed with the current work plan and have it implemented in time for the 2023-2024 heating system.
Okay, so the resolution, the third point in there is that you will be coming back with this level of detail to allow us to have a better, more fulsome conversation. So I think the questions you would have asked will be addressed in this future report. A supplemental question?
If I might have a supplemental. Yeah, the thing that I don't understand is its place in the budget for 2023. If in fact, we're allaying this decision while staff does their good job and comes back to us in, which we don't know the time they're going to come back. And here we are going to drag this. That's going to be a budget item. It's sitting there in our budget now. Should we accrue those funds for 2024 and simply make that decision here and now is my point.
Yeah.
I don't want to do
I
this. I don't want to start this thing in November.
Yeah, no, I think I heard from Director Becking that he just needs the time to actually do a report. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair. I'm asking for a couple of months.
Okay.
As opposed to a year.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly, do you have a question?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. And through you, I just want to confirm there's 3 issues that I'm going to ask whether you're part of your study. Number 1 is the economics of this different system. Number 2, and I know you've covered that off. Number 2 is, and I'm not sure there is an easily accessible measure of environmental responsibility. Are these things certified? Like, I don't know how you're going to portray whether the thing is environmentally responsible or not, unless there's some easy way to codify that and deliver it. I leave that to you. The third thing and the one that I'm concerned about in our climate is the overall sort of reliability or utility or suitability for purpose in this environment. Is this technology proven here? And if it is, I would hope your report's going to come back and just allay any fears that we're on a flyer that won't pan out. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I can attest to the fact that yes, heat pumps are a very viable technology. Essentially, what they are is an air conditioner with an additional valve to send the flow in a different direction during the winter months as opposed to the summer months. Technology has been around for decades. So we're not suggesting anything that is in any way new or speculative or the like. They do have their limitations, as the mayor alluded to, and I will make sure that anything that comes forward to you is a viable solution that will serve that facility amply for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. That's okay. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. Just for clarification, and that Director Becking said there was boilers going in. Are they reheat coils or are they rooftop forced air?
Councillor.
Former, Madam Chair.
Okay. So if I could ask at this point, what I'd like to do is read the resolution. And then if there's any further comment, then we can have it at that point. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Whereas the approved 2023 budget included the replacement of the Milford Bay Community Center HVAC system with a propane system. And whereas Councillor Burry has requested a review of the project for environmental and long-term financial reasons, now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to further investigate alternative options for the replacement of the HVAC system at the Milford Bay Community Center, including but not limited to a heat pump system. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Given the broad description of what the Director of Public Works is looking into, so he's looking at alternatives. I'm happy to pass this resolution, and I don't need any further technical information at this point, because in fact, the director has not had the opportunity to investigate all of the options
Excellent.
at
Thank
this
you.
point.
Okay, committee, any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. At this point, I would like to move on to item 10B, which is the district municipality updates. And I am going to start with Councillor Nishikawa, Councillor Burry, Mayor Kelly, and then Councillor Edwards. I'm just going around how I see you in the room.
Okay, everybody say it with me. Jenna, Yagaha, Yaga. Did you all get it? We all have to practice this every meeting. We have to be able to say this. So anyhow, a good portion of our discussions did take place about the Muskoka Road 38 name change. Again, like every meeting I bring forward up concerning health services, it all evolves around the budgets and where health costs sit within a municipality as opposed to the provincial responsibilities. I think we're very challenged by what is being brought forward at this point, and I would say that we don't have the answers. That's my report. Thank you.
Financial services and or finance and corporate services had presentation upon presentation upon presentation, which started with audit. Stayed awake for that. Then we had human resources and administration. We had an orientation on information technology services, then a shared information technology services year in review scorecard. And then we talked about managed network services, which is a lot of services. Sounds expensive. That's my report.
I have a couple more through you. I have a couple more expensive items. Hospital local share has been a big issue, continues to be a big issue. The next meeting, I believe, is Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock or 1:30 in Huntsville. The CAO and I are expected to be there, which means that there's a big onus on the chair of the meeting in the morning to get things done. Number two, what was the second one? Airport. There's a big issue with the sort of future of the airport. And I can tell you, I've never in my history anywhere, long before public life, seen two completely polar opposite perspectives and viewpoints on how the right way to run that thing is. So it's fascinating to learn. It's fascinating to watch the dynamics of two different groups. The next meeting on that one is Monday morning. Councillor Burry and I are meeting with the, I don't know if it's the whole board, but some of the board of the airport to try and get a better handle on what's going on there. Subsequently, we're meeting with some more amateur participants in the flying experience at the Port Carling International Airport in the gravel pit on Everly Road. So we'll be there. I think that's the 27th. We're going to be there doing that as well. The last thing we have initiated, there has been initiated a strategic planning group team, which did some background work to pull together the basic concept of a strategic plan. Last month's meeting, no, I guess it was just last week, wasn't it? Last week, it was brought to district council as a whole in an exercise called speed dating. There was an interesting sort of juxtaposition of all sorts of, if anything, it highlighted the differences rather than bridged the gaps, I think, between the different municipalities. I'll be keen to see what comes of it. We're working with, what's the name again? Strategy Corp, same group that worked with us. So we're here in the township. So we're in good hands. There's a lot of work to do, not the least of which is resolving the 6 different perspectives on what needs to be done. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards? Actually, I'm not sure if Councillor Edwards attended, did he?
Actually, I don't have a report. I was on holidays. I'm still on holidays, and I wasn't up there to attend in person, which I would have had to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 10C, community events update. Anybody have any updates?
Oh.
There is,
Yeah, that's coming up.
I know I've been told follow this, so I will ask for others, but community events.
I do, Chair. I just can't get my hand up.
Okay, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Okay, so I just want to report that two things that last weekend at Milford Bay Community Center, there's an extremely successful Easter egg hunt for the children. And there were not 70 children, but there were 70 people in attendance. What is more important to communicate is that we within the Milford Bay Community Center have managed, we're so thankful, to get a younger group of people involved to be leaders, to take on from the older team, and they are enthusiastic and great. And I would encourage any community senators that are working to really reach out and get this community, the younger people. We're talking to people in their 30s to 40s, 50s, involved, and giving them responsibilities and accountability to deliver programs. So I think this is terrific news for the Milford Bay Community Center. And on the Easter egg hunt, I just want to personally thank, as a counselor, the job that Christine Donald is doing with the community club and everything she's trying to do to bring spirit and community stronger within Milford Bay. Thank you.
Say that?
You just shouldn't have people.
Okay, I think I'm just being reminded that we shouldn't be bringing forward people's names in the conversation. But thank you very much for the comments on a great community event. Any other comments or community events? Okay, Mary Ellen. Councillor McIntyre.
Yes. I just want to remind everyone that the last Tuesday of every month is potluck for anybody for the Walker's Point Community Center.
Okay.
Walker's Point Community Center has also now formed a committee and is actively involved in the 150th anniversary of Walker's Point Barlocken. Yay! Which will happen in July, and I will bring you the date of when that's going to happen.
Great, thank you. Just turn on. Thank you. Okay, so I am going to ask, are there any other items under new business? Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I wanted to raise the request, and I had spoken with Director Becking previous about this, and it was suggested it come to new business. I would like to bring back the conversation about Sandor Drive and the dock on Sandor Drive. I know that we, in discussions about this, so it's a dock off of our road allowance, but it's not recognized by our municipality. I'd like it to come back because if we wait for the transportation master plan, there's already issues about the use of that particular road allowance and the liability implications because of the motorboats and the items that are actually left on the road allowance on a regular basis. So I've asked Director Becking to bring this back, and that's what I'm bringing up in new business. I don't think I need a resolution. It's just that I'm making this request.
Okay. Okay, so Director Becking, is there an approach that?
Well, as committee or past members of the committee will recall, committee and council directed that this whole matter be held in abeyance pending the outcome of the transportation master plan. The thought behind or the rationale behind that decision was that the policy, it would take time to develop the policy, and then once the policy has been written for the entire community, then the matter itself could be addressed. That was discussed at some considerable length last year. It would seem to me that if the this committee and council chooses to do something different, then there should be direction to do so from the committee.
Okay. So just the background that this has come before a committee before. There was a direction coming out of this there were a number of other issues. We embarked on our transportation master plan. It would seem that in this particular location, there continues or persists to be an issue. And I think the request is, do we want to have staff come back with a report that could help facilitate that discussion that would be outside of the transportation master plan? So I'm now looking to, okay, I see Councillor Zavitz and then Councillor Roberts.
So your question was really, do we want to ask staff to come back with a report, say next month, or you didn't have the parameters on that? I mean, I guess that's to you.
I think I was putting the question out as first step without a timing, just having staff actually go outside of the transportation master plan to come back with this specific location. I see our CAO would like to speak, so I'm going to allow him as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So for the benefit of the new members of council, so this is a location to the west of Bala, downstream on the Moon River. Mr. Becking will correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a piece of municipal property that leads to water. I don't believe it's a road allowance. It hasn't been clarified that it's not a road allowance. There is a dock which was constructed and attached to the land. It became an issue. Staff brought forward a report in August 10th of 22, suggesting or recommending that the dock be removed. Committee indicated that they didn't want to see it removed. It sits, as Mr. Becking has said, pending the outcome of the transportation master plan. So a more holistic view of the community, if you will. So staff's recommendation due to liability issues is likely to not change. So we're happy to bring that report back. So the question would be, if you do wish to have further conversation about it at a future meeting, next meeting, etc., we're happy to bring that report back. The circumstances haven't changed. I believe the question that's being asked is, a conversation during that meeting about, do you want to change the direction that you've previously given? I think that's sort of the nub of the issue, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. It's for you to the CAO. I think the situation has changed. Circumstances have changed. We have a new carrier. We heard the carrier today. For the record, indicate that we have liability at that location. And for that very reason, I think we should bring it back post haste and discuss it further. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts and then Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I think this is a decision currently is out of the hands of committee and council. We were clearly stated today that this is a liability issue that we have assumed. No different than the stoves in the community centers. Staff have recommended to take it out. I think we should prohibit it going back in this year based on our insurance risk and liability, and then study it. So that's my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, I'm going to agree with both Councillor Zavitz and Councillor Roberts on the liability issue. I think learning what we learned today, it's important that we make sure we're not exposing ourselves to uninsured risk. The second issue, quite honestly, and I vaguely remember this. I don't remember my rationale at the time, but I really can't imagine the circumstances of any transportation master plan that would condone this kind of parking of private property on land owned by the township. I mean, I know we have this look going on, and it may result in changing how we deal with waterfront accessibility, but I can't imagine the circumstance that would say it makes a lot of sense to let people park their own docks on the end of our road allowance. So I would bring it back.
Okay, thank you. So I think what I'm, okay, hold on. Excuse me. I do want to, thank you. I can see that staff is actually writing up a a resolution that I could read to this particular topic. If you would allow me to read the resolution.
I would like to see it.
Okay, our CAO is going to have a quick look at this. Do you mind?
I don't know. I don't understand the whole thing.
Let me write it up.
Okay. So it's me.
Okay, we'll just pause for just a minute or two for those that are not in this room, just as we refine the actual resolution. And I do see Councillor Nishikawa has her hand up while you're writing. Thank you.
Thank you. I think all I was looking for from this particular committee today was the understanding of my request was for Director Becking to bring back a report to General Finance next month that we can address it. And all of the information would be in that report. That's why I thought often we just do our thumbs up saying, yeah, come back and we'll discuss it next month. That's all I was looking for. I didn't want to get into any of the other weeds and things like that because there's so much to this.
Thank you, committee. Similar to the other one, I have to read two resolutions to get 2/3 vote. So I will read two resolutions. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Whereas 3.5.1.6 of Township Council Procedure Bylaw 2019-079 provides that any motion may be introduced without council notice if council without debate dispenses with notice by a 2/3 vote. Now therefore be it resolved that Township Council Here is a council or committee?
Well, technically committee, but we've, council's
Okay.
fine. It's ambiguous in the.
Okay, hereby dispenses with notice to consider and vote on the following. That staff provide an updated report on the Sandor Drive Municipal Water Access Property at the next regular scheduled general finance meeting. All those in favor? That's the 2/3, just the 2/3 to get it on. Okay. 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 Yeah. Yes, Councilor Nishikawa?
In the report though, with a suggested resolution rather than just a report, like there should be a resolution attached of. No,
For next
but
month.
I'm reacting to
Recommendation.
what she's read.
Yeah, so I think is there a need for that further language, Director Becking? Okay, thanks for that clarification. So all those, sorry, in favor? It's 2/3. Thank you. And the second one, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that staff provide an updated report on the Sandor Drive Municipal Water Access Property at the next regularly scheduled general finance meeting. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. I need to ask, is there anything else under new business? Okay, seeing nothing, thank you. I don't have anything, we have nothing enclosed. I can now read our resolution to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 1:17 p.m. and the next, sorry. 12:17 p.m. Just seeing if anybody's listening. And then next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, May 10th, 2023 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? Thank you. Committee, I am going to ask that we, with the direction from our mayor, if we could kindly reconvene at 1:20, that gives everybody an hour for lunch. And we will continue with council